design using augmented technology to explore personal and social identities. Beverage labels captivate and fascinate. Some excite with promises of novelties, while others connect on a deeper level, reaching for similarity or intimacy. Yet they all have one thing in common: they vary in their levels of authenticity. Designers tell stories for their client, some never get to tell their own. A package design expresses brand identity as well as personal identities, and it is what I like to call a new package design formula that can be used in the classroom, in addition to building relationship with consumer. So the two component creates authenticity that together with the transparency, so the trustfulness and the honesty of the label would increase the consumer trust and therefore bring in more loyal consumers. This project uses a theoretical framework of the identity wheels developed by the University of Michigan as a starting point. It helps students explore and investigate the abstract concept of personal, social, and intersectional identities. Students are then encouraged to consider the format of a physical package as a self-portrait, with the exterior and the interior being the more and less obvious identities that are felt more or less in different social contexts. While identities are ever changing, the fact that they can have an effect on how we treat each other remain the same. So this is a kind of conversation that is not easy to talk about. And I have found that the identity wheels is a really good conversational starters. And students are aware of the identities, but they are not aware of all of the identities, and especially the intersectional identities. So the places that the identity intersects and or interacts, and there are gap in terms of expectations and experience. That's usually a really good place for students to start thinking about their own stories that they like to tell. This project uses a number of different tools, technologies, and it have a number of deliverables as well. Notably, in addition to the identity wheels, we also use Adobe Arrows in the classroom, as well as Adobe Illustrators and After Effects as well. In terms of the technologies, the augmented realities have not only 2D and 3D graphics, but also 2D and 3D animations. For the deliverables, I have three components. The first one is a print design and mockup, which is pretty traditional for print projects. And then we have the AR extension slash component being captured on videos. And then I require my student to turn in a documentations of the executive summaries, the interactions, so the object triggers and the like, and then the design, including the assets such as like the typography, the illustration, 3D models, and layers. So the project goals are something that need to be discussed early in the classrooms. For this project, I have three goals. The first goal is to help students tell their own story. The second goal is to help students explore and develop their identities. So some identities students might not be thinking of often. They need to recognize that those are worthy of their times and of their investment, and those are usually belong to students who are of colors or who belong to a marginalized communities. And then the very last goal of this project is to help students recognize the community that they belong to and to also build those communities. And they could be racial, they could be ethnic, they could also be professionals as well. So for a project like the students learn quite a few things, some of which are more abstract, and then others to a degree is more traditional to what they would learn in a graphic design classroom. Some of the things that students would learn in these projects are how to formulate the ideas into into visual artifacts, and then creating assets, and that including both 2D and 3D assets. Even though the 3D asset portions of this project, we do not have enough time to cover that fully, but they are introduced in the classroom. And then the last one is for students to get familiar with an augmented reality development environment. And in this case, that's building a prototype with Adobe Aero. I have a few technical notes for these projects, and that have to be with the my recommendations for how to build this kind of project and how to run it in the classroom, and the other one have to do with kinds of limitations. So just things that should be noted in advance. The first one is that this project is object based instead of screen or location based, and that is a kind of a sweet spot between using the device as at its at its best capacity versus just using a filter, a sticky note that Snapchats and Facebook use. Um, and then the other one is to make sure that your student understand that the experience need to be clean and simple. It should first and foremost provide more depth to the print design, and then it can also supplement reality with added digital elements as well. And then in terms of limitation, we have a few things such as the creation of 3D assets being very time consuming, so that needs to be prioritized if that is a component that students are interested in. Um, the other one have to do with the fact that using augmented reality, student can add additional graphic into the design, so that should be that should also be noted as well. And the last one had to do with the real world lighting and environment. So the extension will be play onto a screen capture of the real world, and so when when students choose to record that experience, they need to well, not only choose a decent play, but also keep that in mind as they build that experience as well.